call our meeting to order. The quorum is here. We'll declare the meeting open. Thank you for coming tonight. Beautiful evening. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Willie Stewart for the pledge and invocation.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pray with me, please. Lord, I just want to thank you for this day, Lord. Just thank you for the city that we live in. Lord, I just want to thank you for each and every one here today and the families that they represent. Lord, just be with us tonight. We make decisions that will affect citizens of our community. Help us seek your wisdom as we make those decisions. In Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Council, everybody get a chance to review the minutes of the meeting of August 5th.
Move to approve the minutes of August 5th. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have a special presentation. I'm going to introduce Denison Police Chief Mike Gudgel.
Did it right. Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. I'm Mike Gudgel. I'm new to Denison. I've been here about a month and a half, a little over, but I'm new to the area. I have family that lives just north of here in the great state of Illinois. At least that's what they call it. Before I got this job, I had reached out to Chief Flores and talked about, if it happened, how much I'd like to work with him. Crime doesn't have boundaries. So it's been amazing in the first month and a half plus to be able to reach out to Chief Flores and work together. More importantly, my first week was a tough week. Sergeant Conrad was put in hospice, died, and then we had his funeral. What I'm here to do today is give this appreciation plaque because Sherman PD sent over their pipes and drums. That was huge for all of us, and appreciate that. I'll go even further. Last week we had an officer-involved shooting. Chief Flores immediately called me. His people were there, along with our fire personnel as well. So thank you for that. So this is a certificate of appreciation presented by the Denison Police Department. Hereby extends its gratitude to Sherman PD for their generous show of support to the Denison Police Department during the loss of our officer, Brian Conrad, and for their continued support for this department and for our community. Given on the 19th day of August, 2019, signed by me and City Manager Judd Rex.
I appreciate it. He and I have had a lot of conversations and enjoy a great friendship. And one of the first things I know that he told Denison that I've echoed in my department is that a battle on the football field is one thing. We're not going to do it in the police departments. And we share a lot with each other and we get a lot done. And so one of the best things the city of Denison's done in a long time is hire this man. So I appreciate it. I feel very highly of him to many people, and again, talk to their city manager to say my thoughts and appreciation. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, at this time we're going to open the public hearing. We'll hear about the capital improvement program 2019 through 2024.
Yes, the city charter requires preparation and council approval of a 5-year capital improvement plan in conjunction with the annual budget. This plan fulfills that requirement. Even though the plan calls for $223 million in projects, only the first year is funded through the annual budget. No changes were made to the plan since our review of the plan at the last meeting. The vote on this plan will be in the form of a resolution later this meeting.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here to address the capital improvement program? No, we'll move on to C2. Linda, if you'll read that for us, please.
Ordinance 6233, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman providing for the appropriation of funds for operating and capital expenditures for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2020. Providing for repealer, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. This budget will raise more total property taxes than last year's budget by $3,654,027%. And of that amount, $507,000 is revenue to be raised from new property added to the roll this year. The decrease in residential trash rate by $6 per month per customer will fully offset the impact of the tax rate increase for the average residential taxpayer.
Yeah, so I've got a brief little presentation here that updates our goings on since our last meeting. And this really relates both to C2 and to C3. C2 is the only item on the agenda that we're taking action on tonight. I mean, the budget part of it. The tax rate vote and public hearings will come. Mary will talk about that next time. But based on our discussion at the last council meeting, staff went back and looked at alternatives to reduce or eliminate the impact of this tax rate increase to the residential customers. So what we're going to talk about here in the next couple of minutes is kind of what our plan is. Before we get to that plan, just kind of working through some of the numbers here. So we've got about 12,000, a little over 12,000 single-family residential trash accounts. Some of those have one cart, some of them have two. We also have about 2,700 accounts, tax accounts that are those citizens who are 65 or older whose taxes are frozen. So no matter what we would do with the tax rate, they would not be affected by any action that we took there. The average, per the Grayson Appraisal District, the average taxable value of a single-family resident in Sherman residential property is a little under $117,000, so rounded up there. Median, by the way, which is if you have a list of the 12,000 single-family residential tax accounts and pick the middle one of those, that number is called the median. That number is actually 95,000. So the average, but the average for Sherman is 117,000. This is our current tax rate. This is our proposed tax rate, made up of both debt and operations, and then this is the rollback rate. So you can see that what we're proposing is a rate that is less than the rollback rate. If you work through all these numbers and apply what we're asking for, what we're proposing on the tax rate of a 6.17 cent increase, most of that being on the debt side, as we've talked about, that equates to about $72 a year per residential customer, per average single-family resident. So it's that times 117,000. So what we're proposing then is that we reduce the residential solid waste rates by $6 a month. So $6 a month times 12 months is $72 a year. So the benefits of doing this is that every single residential trash customer benefits. And that by doing this, that $72 per year per customer will fully offset the average residential impact from the tax rate increase. One other benefit to this too is that the senior citizens who are on fixed incomes, who are not going to feel the impact of the tax rate increase, they get this $72 a year benefit through a reduction of the trash rates. So it has multiple benefits there. I'm a picture guy, so I just want to put this in picture form. The increase in revenues from the average residential taxpayer is going to be fully offset by a decrease in the tax rate. So how that relates to this agenda item is there's been a few changes in our budget based on this. So the budget that's being presented tonight assumes that we go in this direction. So on the solid waste fund, we have reduced our trash rate to by $6 a month. The last version you saw was $4 a month-ish. So that's change number one. Change number two is we did add into our budget the expected revenues from the TASWA redistribution of excess funds. We don't know exactly what the amount will be. We don't know exactly when it will be, although they'll decide that next month at the TASWA board meeting. But this is our best guess of what that amount will be and the timing of that. So we've added that into our budget revenues as well. And again, the impact of this is to fully offset the tax rate increase impact to the residential customers, and that the seniors get a benefit, an additional benefit as well. Other things to be, I guess, just to be aware of. So the county's proposing to lower their tax rate by nearly 3 cents, 2.6, 2.7 cents. And the city of Sherman values represent about 1/3 of the tax base of the entire county. Well, so the reason the county is able to lower their tax rate is because the tax base is growing by about $1 billion. Much of that through the growth that's happening in Sherman and Denison. And so Sherman's contribution, the taxpayers' contribution to the ability of the county to lower the rates is really attributed to Sherman. And so in addition to this fully offsetting through the trash rates, you know, in effect, Sherman's getting 1 cent of the about 3 cent decrease in the Grayson County lowering of their rates. Now they haven't, I don't believe they've adopted their budget yet, the county, but they presented their budget and are headed this direction. So for all of those reasons, we would just propose that you know, the council follow the plan that's in the budget being presented tonight. It, I believe, accomplishes the goals of what you guys set out last meeting of seeing if we could fully offset the impact. And so that's what's being proposed tonight. And I'll let Mary talk a little bit more just about the budget itself and about the tax rate. But I wanted to show you guys kind of the plan that we've come up with since we last met.
Right, so the draft budget includes that property tax rate at 0.489. It's lower than the rate that was presented at the budget workshop because of the increase in values that we saw when we got the certified values. Because we didn't increase the tax rate last year when we issued new debt, most of that increase in taxes goes to fund the debt service. In 2018, the debt service was about $2 million. In 2020, it will be $4.4 million. The budget also contains the $6 account decrease in residential solid waste rates. That's about 6 cent decrease in the tax rate to the average home value, so the effect on the taxpayer for an average home value is 0. Is there any, other than that, the budget is substantially what was presented last meeting.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to address item C2 this evening?
I have a question.
Yes.
Longwell Lake, property owner 220 East Houston, Sherman, Texas. The presentation that this Mr. City Council, Manager Hefton did, can that be put in the local newspaper word for word so the citizens can see all of it?
We hope it's sort of up to the guys in the big room right here.
Do what?
It's up to him, not up to us. We don't control what goes in the newspaper, exactly. So if you're asking if something can be put in the newspaper.
I'm not gonna go on that discussion. I'm gonna listen right now. It's like it's worded like that, just like everybody saw it here, everything you put up there, put in there for the city.
We are not gonna restrict their rights to say what they want to, so they could put word for word in here if they wanted to.
But you're not gonna request it.
We are now.
We are now.
Yeah.
Michael, would you put word for word what's in our presentation here today?
In a square box where people can see it, not in small print.
Front page.
Can't promise anything on that.
Oh, that's okay.
We
He
love
didn't do
it.
it,
We
no,
love it.
Rodriguez about it.
I heard it.
love for them to do it.
All right, Linda, if you read C three for us, please.
Ordinance 6234, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman providing for the levy of ad valorem taxes for the City of Sherman, Texas, for the tax year of 2019, distributing the same among the various funds, providing for a penalty and interest for failure to pay the taxes levied within the time provided by law, providing for a repeal, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Okay, thank you, Linda. City Council will consider the adoption of the tax rate ordinance at the regular meeting scheduled for 5 p.m. on Monday, September 16, 2019 at Sherman City Hall, 220 West Mulberry Street, Sherman, Texas. Gary?
Right, so if the proposed tax rate is higher than the effective rate or the rollback rate, the state requires 2 public hearings. This is the first of the 2 public hearings. The next one will be at the September 3rd meeting. And as David just read, the final adoption of the tax rate will be at the second meeting in September. There's no action tonight, it's just a public hearing.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here to address C3? Linda, if you would read C4 for us, please.
Ordinance 6235, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman ordering an election of the qualified voters of the City of Sherman, Texas on the 5th day of November 2019 for the purpose of electing 2 district city council members for said city, providing that said election shall be held jointly with Grayson County, Texas, designating election precincts, appointing election officials, providing for notice of said election, providing for the use of direct recording electronic voting equipment, providing for early voting, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Brandon?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, C4, C5, and C6 are all have to do with the election in November. C4, which was just read, is the regular city council election to elect the 2 council members.
Okay. Is there anyone here to address item C4 this evening? If not, Linda, will you read C5 for us, please?
Ordinance 6236, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman ordering an election of the qualified voters of the City of Sherman, Texas on the 5th day of November 2019 for the purpose of the reauthorization of the local sales and use tax at the rate of 1/8 of 1% to continue providing revenue for maintenance and repair of municipal streets, providing that said election shall be held jointly with Grayson County, Texas, designating election precincts, appointing election officials, providing for notice of said election, providing for the use of direct recording electronic voting equipment, providing for early voting, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Brandon?
C5 is the special election. C5 has to do with the street sales tax. I think that's a re-up of the sales tax that we've had for several years.
Thank you, Brandon. Is there anyone here to address item C5 today? Linda, if you'll read C6 for us, please.
Ordinance 6237, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman calling a special election of the qualified voters of the City of Sherman, Texas on the 5th day of November 2019 for the purpose of amending the city charter of the City of Sherman, Texas, providing for notice of said election, designating election precincts, providing for the use of direct recording electronic voting equipment, providing for early voting, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Brandon?
Ordinance 6237 is calling another special election. This one is for the charter amendments that were so eloquently explained at the last meeting.
Thank you, Brandon. Is there anyone here to address C6 this evening? Yeah, Linda, if you'll read C7, please.
Ordinance 6238, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman reappointing a presiding municipal court of record judge and alternate municipal court of record judges for the City of Sherman, Grayson County, Texas, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you. Mary?
Yes, in 2017, the City Council approved the change to the Sherman Municipal Court to make it a court of record. This enables us to more efficiently take the substandard structures through the demolition process by using a civil court. The updated ordinance includes a provision that aligns us with state law that requires reappointment of municipal judges every 2 years. So this action will accomplish that reappointment for our presiding judge and our alternate judges, and we'll be bringing this back to you every 2 years now.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here to address item C7 this evening? Linda, if you're ready to see the rules, please.
Ordinance 6239, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman amending Chapter 1 of the Code of Ordinances entitled General Provisions, Article 1.07 entitled Aviation, Division 1 entitled Generally, to provide for a new Section 1.07.004 to be entitled Sherman Municipal Airport Advisory Board, providing for inclusion in the Code of Ordinances, providing for severability, providing for a repeal clause, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Mary?
The Airport Advisory Board was disbanded in 2012. Since then, we've had increased interest in developing the airport. We've completed phase 1 of the Sherman Municipal Airport Master Plan. And later on in this agenda, the contract for phase 2 will be brought to you. An important part of the development of the master plan is stakeholder input, and staff believes that an airport advisory board is an important liaison between the users of the airport, the city council, and the staff. So we request the airport advisory board be created to this end.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here to address item C8 this evening? If not, Linda, will you read C9 for us?
Ordinance 6240, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman amending Chapter 1 of the Code of Ordinances entitled General Provisions, Article 1.07 entitled Aviation, at Division 2 entitled Municipal Airport, Section 1.07.034, at Division 3 entitled Airport Rules, Sections 1.07.092, 1.07.093, 1.07.095, and 1.07.098, and deleting sections 1.07.033 and 1.07.100 in their entirety, providing for inclusion in the Code of Ordinances, providing for severability, providing for a repealer clause, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Mary?
Yes, the airport ordinance has not been updated since 1991. Since then, there's been pretty significant changes in federal and state laws governing general aviation. So what we propose to do is update our ordinance to reflect the changes in laws and in the general aviation environment, and also to make some changes that will allow us to develop the airport according to the master plan.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here to address C9 this evening? Okay, not. Linda, will you read C10, please?
Ordinance 6241, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman redesignating residential reinvestment zone number 041811-1, City of Sherman, Texas, to City of Sherman reinvestment zone number 10 for the purpose of residential tax abatement. Finding the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Mary?
In 2010, the comptroller changed their policy for how reinvestment zones are numbered, and they included reinvestment zones for residential, industrial, enterprise. They have since notified us that our numbering is not correct. And all this ordinance does is change the number of our reinvestment zone to align with the comptroller's new policy. There's no changes in the program or the area or any other parts of that reinvestment zone ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here to address C10 this evening? If not, we'll close public hearing. Consider other business. So we're down to D1, providing for the ratification of the property tax increase.
All right, is this open for discussion, or is this just, you ready to go?
Yeah, so we can read the statement, and Mary's already discussed the impacts and what we're proposing. So there is that statement before we move on to the budget adoption that needs to be read.
Okay. I move to ratify the property tax increase proposed in the budget ordinance number 6233. The decrease in residential trash rates by $6 per month will fully offset the impact of the tax rate increase for the average residential taxpayer.
Second. Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Now we are down to E1, the adoption of ordinance number 62 6233.
So, I guess I could follow this up with, I know last meeting, I was the main opposition, I was the only one that voted against the tax rate increase, although I know that there were a lot of folks on this council who felt the same way, or felt that they wanted to see an offset. And that information went back to you guys, and, I greatly appreciate city staff working to, get there for the citizens of Sherman, so that the average taxpayer doesn't have, that tax burden, and it definitely is a perk that it does help those retirement age folks as well, lower their tax, or lower their, financial burden. So, with that being said, I'll leave it up for any other discussion, but I just appreciate you guys.
Any other discussion on 6233?
Motion to approve. Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Now we're down to E2, discussion of the balance of the ordinance numbers. Council, questions, discussion?
I'd like to make a comment on C5, just briefly, and actually it's for clarification for our citizens, and it has to do with our street tax on C5. And, just to make sure, what can the street tax be used on?
The street tax can be used only on existing roads.
Okay, that's the
It
part I
cannot
want
be
to make.
used for, building new roads. So it's for maintenance and repair of roads that exist at the time that the, street tax is put back into service.
Because I wanted our citizens to understand that this is not so that we can build new roads in areas where we might have to be, expanding our infrastructure, but this is in order to try to keep up with, our facilities, our streets, et cetera, and other parts of the city. So that's all I wanted to make sure on that. Thank you.
I'd like to reiterate that if you vote for this to continue, we're also getting this money from other people that are utilizing the streets, such as our friends to the north.
Yes, over half of the sales tax that is generated from this comes from, users outside the city of Sherman. So it's really a way to, have these services paid for the people that, by the people that are using it, so.
Go ahead.
So I make a motion to adopt this ordinance.
6236 by itself, or you want to do that?
I'll make a motion. Yeah.
Do it all
There's
of
no
it?
more discussion.
I've got a question about.
Okay.
Lump everything together. All right, go ahead. I guess in 2012, the airport board was disbanded. What was the reason behind that?
So, for the last many years, we've been looking at, is there another beneficial use for the airport? And, the airport board was active for many years, and then, we had various discussions, staff level, council level, about is there another use for the property? With the recent activity and interest from, both members of the community and other investors, the desire for, growth and expansion and, investment and development at the airport has really, taken off. So we feel like this is a good step in that direction. The folks that, the local folks that are interested, have remained kind of active in the airport. It's just that there's been no formal board, for them to advise on anything. So as Mary said, I think it's useful that we put this board back into commission and, allow them to help, with the roadmap that we're developing through Corrigan. It'll be handy to have this board back in place.
No, I agree, and being this old school, I was one of those that had my doubts about the municipal airport for many years. And it's exciting to see, the municipal airport is possibly on the verge of expansion and growth. And so I think this is a great idea to reenact or re-establish this, advisory board. And I hope that, those that have been involved will be involved again.
You know, it's kind of interesting, that you bring that up and raise the questions, because for many years, and I was part of those discussions, 10+ years ago. It's not that the city staff was, against, keeping the airport board at the time, keeping the airport board, active. Really what we were asking for is, for someone outside, some third party, an investor, someone not driven by the city or staff, to take an interest in development or redevelopment of the airport. And so we were hearing from some of those users of the airport, yeah, there's demand there, and although there has been a waiting list for hangar space, there was not really anybody that has stepped up until recently and said, I'll put my money in to do that. Many of the requests 10+ years ago were, there's demand, hey city, why don't you put your money in? And we were just a little reticent to do that at the time. But now what we have, now that the market, I think, is maturing, and there have been some changes in with North Texas Regional, that is finally happening. And so I think it's a great idea that we're reconsidering this, and I think we've got some folks here that have a vested interest there at Sherman Municipal. And so I'm glad that we're doing it, and hope that you guys will support our efforts to kind of make progress in this way.
With that, I will second Milton's motion to adopt the remaining ordinances.
Okay, got a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ordinances are adopted. All right, we're down to the consent agenda. These items are considered to be routine and will be enacted in one motion without discussion unless a council member or citizens request a specific item be discussed and voted on separately. Consent agenda includes items F2, F5, G1, H1, I1, I2, I3, and I4. Anybody like to separate these from the reason?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, but I did have one question real quick. So on these elections, is it possibly we may not have election for city council, or there may not be, if we pay one price, is it all
Correct,
correct?
yeah.
Before we add more
Whether,
price, or?
generally speaking, whether we have one matter of business or 1,000 matters of business, the cost is about the same. It may vary slightly, but we pay the same cost if there's any sort of election we have to have. Now, but yeah, I'll leave it there. Yeah.
I second.
Motion is second on consent, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Next item, resolution 6510, approving and adopting a 5-year capital improvement program for the city of Sherman, Texas.
Yes, it's the same, capital improvement plan that we discussed earlier, and this is the vote to adopt the plan.
Council, any questions on this item?
Mary, I did have just one question, or a couple maybe, sorry. But, is it $232 million over 5 years was the capital improvement, plan, correct? Somewhere around there?
Right.
Now, was that, just kind of trying to figure out how we were gonna pay for that? Is that something that, I know sometimes this is a Christmas list, and, we may or may not do these things every year, but, we've been experiencing about 3.5% growth in our, tax base. And so, am I correct with my math there to figure out that even at the end of the day, it costs us about $15 million a year to fund all of these projects, and that 3.5% increase over 5 years would give us just about the amount of money that we would need to do all these projects through an organic tax-based growth?
Well, yes and no. The math is okay, but we do have other things that we fund that the growth also uses. Also, these projects are utility projects, they're stormwater, so they're solid waste, they're across all funds. In reality, this plan is always changing, and so we do plan for 5 years, but we may get to next year and one project may totally fall off and another one comes on. I can think of several that were very high dollar that we're probably never gonna do because conditions change. So Gino, I think it was, who, was it MacArthur, that said, planning is mandatory, but plans are mandatory, planning is, no, I said it the wrong way. I should never try to quote any old army generals. Anyway, but it's more the planning process that is helpful. We don't look at the funding side when we prepare this plan.
So some of these projects may be funded by FEMA that are in this funding?
By FEMA?
Yes.
Yes, that is true, the stormwater,
So that's money
projects.
that we've counted on, it's not gonna be spent by us, but by
Right.
the federal government.
Right, so I hate to give you a definite answer when there's so many moving pieces.
But the concept there though is that this is, you know, we're looking at potential needs over some longer period of time than 1 year, number one. And then number two, you know, we set the budget 1 year at a time. So the only thing that's being approved tonight in terms of our authority to spend is what you just did 5 minutes ago to approving the budget, which included our capital portions of that. And so I think, to your point, Mr. Tiemann, that although this is a $200+ million, you know, projected, project list, the authority to spend and do these projects is going to come back multiple times with each project, number one. And then number two, it will come through multiple sources of funding. Some through utility rates, some through stormwater fees, some through FEMA, some through grants, some through growth in tax base, property tax base and sales tax base. So the revenue sources are varied. The probability, what I can say with 100% surety is these aren't gonna all be done, and these aren't gonna all cost us the same. Some may be more, some may be less, but it is our plan just to get out in front of the council and the citizens about the things that could be coming up. And whether it be this list or things that are added, our funding source for those, at least on the general side, is going to rely on growth in our tax base, substantially on growth in our tax base, which, as we talked about during the budget workshop cycle, that is upward trending. If the development comes as it's planning to come, then there will be ample resources to do that. So, but we'll cross that bridge starting this time next year.
You know, the struggle we were in this year